All right, welcome everybody to the second installment of the Ropeadope Music and Arts Festival. We are here in the Ropeadope Room in East Philadelphia, and for those of you who have not seen this room yet, I'm going to start us off with a little mini tour, and I'm going to see if I can make this work. So I have to disconnect the mic, so excuse my audio. Switch over. So this is an old train station. The railroad tracks just outside the city of Philadelphia. And here on the walls, I want to take you back to the beginning. All right. This is the history. We start all the way up on the top with DJ Logic and Bullfrog, Spanish Harlem Orchestra, Gennaro Jarrell, sending out my best to him. Records all the way up until about 2006 or 7 over there. And we come back to wall number 2. Which I'm going to fall down on live. I love it. There we go. This gets us into 2008, 2009, 10, maybe even well up into 2016, 17. You see Snarky Puppy up there in the middle, some Eddie Palmieri, Yaz Ahmed, some signed vinyl from my dear friends back there. And we roll around to a little bit of our most important space right here, the bar. And then some old collectible posters. And now we're into, the last couple of years. And here's the problem. We're out of room. So there's a stack of CDs here that have yet to go. I don't know if that's showing or not. We've got some collectibles that we're going to be putting up for people. This is Home Sweet Home, except that it's been empty for quite some time. I want to shout out Angela Moore on that one. Right there. Fishbone Soldiers.
Nice.
And there is the Ropeadope, the quick mini Ropeadope tour for those for the early folks. We hope that someday you can come and visit the room. Safety first, of course. I am here on Bandcamp Day. I'm so happy that Bandcamp is continuing to do this. We're going to have a little discussion at a little bit after 11 East Coast time about why Bandcamp is so great and why others are maybe not as great. And we're gonna debate those different services that are out there. But I want to say that Bandcamp has easily donated over $1 million, perhaps over $2 million to independent artists directly over the past 3 to 4 months of COVID, and they're going to continue to do so, as well as donating to the NAACP. So that's a model of what works, how things should be, and big props to them. And we've done well during that time, and have been cutting checks to artists in the process. So at a very important time. So shout out to that. We're going to talk a little bit about what's coming up at Ropeadope and what you're about to see today. I want to say that we're live this morning. We're going to have a roundtable discussion at 11:15 with some Ropeadope artists, Greg Spiro, Joe Pignato, Melody Forrester, and others. We're going to air some new videos and some old videos, some unreleased material from Rockwood Music Hall and from some of our artists that they've been creating during quarantine. And we'll be back here at 4 o'clock this afternoon with conversation and videos again, and also a special conversation between Christian Scott, Atunde Adjua, and Alexander Flood in Australia tomorrow. We're going to travel into the future. So I want to welcome into the room the man who keeps me together, professionally speaking, Mr. Fabian Brown. Mr. Brown, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing great, Lewis. How about yourself?
Yeah, you're like an anchor. Although somebody said to me yesterday, anchor is the wrong word because it's kind of like a drag, right? You're like the rudder. You're like when I drift, I come back and you're like, no, we're still here. We're doing this. So thank you for that. Welcome. Also want to jump over to the West Coast and welcome Mr. Greg Spiro, who is.
Good morning.
It's awfully early in the morning to get into the psychedelics, buddy.
I'm just coming at you from outer space, man, as always.
Tell Sun Ra we said hello.
Thanks for including me in this, man. I was just reflecting when you were going back to the DJ Logic and the Snarky Puppy records. It's really cool to see the lineage of Ropeadope, and then to see where we are now and look towards the future and what this lineage is going to look like as we're building it now when we look back on it.
We're at this generational turn. It happened a couple of years ago. With this band right behind me, there's a psychedelic cover, Senor Langosta, and also another band from Mexico called Troker. They got into music listening to Logic and Sex Mob and the Philadelphia Experiment. So they came up listening to that, and then that Ropeadope was their starting point, which is really fascinating. So.
Yeah. I mean, as it was for me, DJ Logic was one of my early musical references, and then we ended up playing together, which is such a trip to how it all comes full circle.
It's funny. I remember you talking about Senor Langosta and referring to them as let me get this right, Snarky Puppy with teeth, I believe.
I did say that. Yeah. No disrespect to Snarky Puppy, but they had a little more grit coming out of Puerto Rico. Fabian, I think your mic, I don't know if it's just me, but your mic seems a little bit low. I'm having a little trouble hearing you.
Check 1, 2. Can you hear me okay?
There you go. So let's tell the folks what's coming up at Ropeadope.
Super excited today. As a matter of fact, August 7th, we have a few things coming out. We have a release from Miss Brenda Nicole Moyer, release titled Morrow. That is out today, guys. Go grab that. It's available everywhere. Check out Bandcamp. We have Jason Miles out with a single today titled Pretty World. Excited about that. We kind of select that one in the release schedule. I think you guys should check that out. It's a little bit more grounded to what's going on today in today's times. And then maybe I'll even pass the mic over to Mr. Greg Spiro here, because we have another release from Terry and Gully titled Tankafield.
Tanktified. Yeah, it's one of Cherion's original compositions. His most popular original composition. His nickname is Tank. Cherion Tank Gully.
I love it. Greg,
so Terion, let me just interject. Terion's place him for me on Ropeadope, right? Is that like with Christian McBride or with Charlie Hunter, perhaps?
He's played with Christian McBride. I believe it. He toured with who's the Vibes, the incredible Vibes player. I can't remember his name now. I think the band's called Blackout. I'll figure it out. He's toured extensively with tons of super popular pop artists and a ton of really great jazz artists, but he hasn't released his own solo material yet. So we recorded in Tiny Room and got 4 tracks. There are 3 covers and then one of his originals, and this is the original, Tanktified, with some incredible other musicians on it. Bob Reynolds is playing sax.
Nice.
And Jeffrey Keyser is playing. I'm really excited for this release. His first one did really well. It got a ton of radio play, and I'm just really, really excited to push this next one out for him. And there's video of the whole thing too. So we have a video that's being released with it.
So I want to mention, so Terry Gully was on the Live at Tonic with Christian McBride, that throwdown in New York City in January of 2005, I believe, or maybe even earlier, 2004. And Jeffrey Keyser's no stranger to the label as well from the past, some OG there. But let's talk about, I want to preface this with our imprint network here at Ropeadope. So with the concept being that, artists should have more control of their material, it occurred to me, especially since when I started into this, I didn't really know anything about music and about A&R, and especially not about quality performances in jazz, right? Just as a consumer, really. So it seemed to me that artists should be the ones to control A&R. I mean, you obviously know more about the music than a guy in a a suit, even if he is wearing an Angelo Moore t-shirt. Um, so Michael League from Snarky Puppy was the first, and the label Ground Up was incubated here at Ropeadope. And the question was, well, what can I release? And I'm like, just you have the label, we'll do the behind the scenes work and, distribution, accounting and legal and all of that, and put out whatever you like. And that just continued to expand from Ground Up to Atlanta Records to Masha Beats with Mark DeCladlow. So there's about 8 or 10 imprints that are run by artists under the Ropeadope umbrella. And if you're at Bandcamp, you can see them all in the top header and click through to their pages. But in the process of getting to know Greg Spiro, it occurred to me that, I would never, ever recommend that anybody start a record label. I want to make that clear, right? But that said, it occurred to me that Greg had not had the balance of Greg, you have the balance of artistry, uh, business sense, and also relationships that seem to be exactly right. And of course, I think you brought the idea. You said like to start, begin Tiny Records and have it with us. So that's the preface. Now, if you could tell us what your vision and what all is happening at Tiny Records. One record's out today, but there's a lot more happening.
Oh yeah, man. I mean, well, really, I don't, as far as business sense or whatever, I feel like my main thing is a problem, and the problem is just that I have too much music. I've recorded way too much music over the past years, and I've helped others record way too much music because there's so much talent out there. And as we've seen over the course of our professional careers, like there's an ebb and flow of commercial music, and there came a point, maybe it was at its most saturated point about 5 years ago. We've been seeing the blowback of it, but we've seen when you put the development of music into the hands of the people who are making the money from the music, which is the like major labels, then you will get homogenized and non-artistic endeavors, and that's what will be fed to the public, and you get a cycle that results in a sort of monotony and unexcited, unartistic landscape of music and art and humanity in general. And I think that there's a big incredible pushback that, and you've always been on the underground, which is why I appreciate you so much. You're always like, screw you to the controlling entities that are trying to just squeeze every last drop of revenue out of artistic entities. And you've been an empowering artist your whole career.
Thanks. I mean, they believe in homogenizing, like business in general homogenizes things till eventually you just have Big Macs, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's what business is. It's commodity, and that's what music has turned into. And we'll talk about that more later because there's a really big discussion to be done on that. But on the musical side of things, it's like I have so many friends and I've recorded with so many people, especially over the past 2 years since I left Halsey and built the Tiny Room studio. It's like, and I haven't released almost any of it because it takes an infrastructure to release. And so that's what you did for me, was you gave me that infrastructure to be able to say like, all right, guys, all of these, I don't know, 20 or 30 people that I've recorded in my room, and most of which I played on myself. Like let's come together and let's release this music and put it out, and so I can support these artists that deserve to be heard, like Terrion, who you didn't have a profile on Spotify. You look up Terrion Gully and you don't see any music from him, and now you see a track from him, and now you're going to see another one today. And so people can start, like there's demand for it. People can start going and listening to this amazing music that he's created. He's a great artist, but then it's enabled these other creative endeavors, like the jams we did with Mono Neon and Sput and Ronald Brunner and Russell and Sirota, and we're releasing those compositions. There are like 25 of them. We've just released 2 of them so far.
Wow.
And then stuff with Lido and Transviolet, these pop artists and producers that I brought in to do like cool, weird jazz versions of their stuff. And like, there's so much creativity to be done. And I'm very, I guess you could say ADD. I always like going and creating more stuff, and I get really, really excited about it. And then after it's all created, there's got to be a way to distribute it. So that's what this turned into. Tiny Records, imprinted onto Ropeadope Records, so that we could actually put all this stuff out.
And I gotta say, I've been I've been sneaking into the files, Greg, and just kind of peeping it out and listening, and just really enjoying some stuff, man. There's a one track that I'll talk to you about offline that I was just hearing. You were just burning on a piano solo, and I've heard you play a lot for a long, long time, but I never heard you play like that. I was like, bro, that was just some other stuff. So I wanna geek out with you a little bit on what you're doing and what you were thinking you were doing that actually.
All right.
It wasn't me. I had Jeffrey Keyser come in and do a solo for me. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, he's trying to get out of that. Well, you know, I think there's a lot coming from Tiny Records, and people should stay tuned. And I think that we kind of agree that we're sort of witnesses to something where popular culture is not necessarily valuing what's really happening fully in the music community, specifically in jazz and crossover kind of music. This to me is one of the most creative times in music history, and we just have yet to recognize it fully. With that, I want to just cue up a series of videos that represent some of the things that our Ropeadope artists have presented. We're going to start out in the first couple with some heavy groove, and then some heaviness, both from some interesting guitarists. Will Bernard, no stranger to Ropeadope, and followed by the great Paige Hamilton from Helmet. So buckle up. They're going to come in strong.
De allí, el inicio de la leyenda del chupacabras. En realidad, el chupacabras, si existe, este es un animal, modificado, por el hombre, es decir, es un ser vivo creado en un laboratorio, genético experimental, por órdenes del gobierno mundial Illuminati, especie de monstruo humanoide, del chupacabras, y la finalidad.
Let's get these vibes happening.
I want you to stay with me tonight. I wanna get close to you. I want you to stay with me tonight. I wanna get close to you.
Why?
Oh,
Last night I got up on it. This morning was an awkward moment, but I got to own it. You the only one I'm trying to holler on the phone with, or get up in my zone with. This is how it feel when you supposed to be my Cinderella, but the slipper don't fit. I know you got your own shit. Ironic that I know you need this space like space, and I'm in it. Too much giving, too much distance, too much persistent. It ruined each vision. Now I'm doing each mission, trying to eat dishes in heat kitchens. But shorty got that beef sitting conclusive, we splitting. Used to be the one she treat different. She packed the bag when I was at work. How does that work? Said she might, now that been worth it, good luck with that search. I was trying to put the ring on it, she got the Mac first. All gold in a black purse, now she dipping and that hurts. How we gonna assume and never ask first? Threw a rose in the black hearse. Told him she couldn't stay now. Happened last night, it's stuck in his head all day now.
I want you to stay with me tonight. I wanna get close to you. I want you to stay with me tonight. I wanna get close to you.
What?
Oh,
Broadened this view was like the wide frame on me. Looked her in the eyes, dang, the vibe changed on me. Showed off as a show out. Home cooked meal on a candle lit. night in cause it's too cold to go out. Began to outgrow me when their heart started to grow out. Had a lot going on and I'm going on a long tangent. Passionate, on and on ranting. A thing you used to love about me, now you can't stand it, god damn it. This the type of heat you hit your mans with. We was laid up splitting the sandwich you can't split. Took my heart for speed bag boxing. I had issues, she had options. But hey yo, you was right just like Mako. Went shopping and you slipped out to San Diego. Deleting drawings on Instagram, trying to lay low. I know.
I said that I want you to stay with me tonight. I wanna get close to you. I want you to stay with me tonight. I wanna get close to you. Oh, 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 tonight I wanna get close to you. You.
And we're ready. All right. We are back here at the Ropeadope room. That was some great music and great visuals from the likes of Adam Ahuja and Lido from Greg Spiro's Tiny Records, as well as some interesting performance from a put together band at the Rockwood Music Hall, consisting of some greats who just before they went on stage and prepared that or performed that, they were huddled in the back room at Rockwood in January 2020, going over the charts because no one had played that music before. So it was really fascinating time from before lockdown. We're back. We're going to have a little discussion about the music business, and I'm joined in the room with some associates, friends who I have the great pleasure of getting to know in this business. Welcoming first in Philadelphia, Melody Forrester, perhaps Melody heads perhaps the only or one of the few Black women-owned record labels in the world, Artist First Records in Philadelphia, and has released titles from Diggable Planets, Sugar Tongue Slim, Kin for Life, and more here through the Ropeadope Network. Melody, welcome. Also, there you go. Also with us, Joe Pinato from Bright Dog Red, veteran of the music business and on the creative and the professional side, and a teacher and organizer and creator of some of the most unique improvisational music that a person can hear. Joe, welcome.
Hey, thanks, Louis. Good to be here.
In New York City, I assume, Mr. Adam Ahuja, head of Infinity Gritty, a fascinating label that's building quite a catalog of interesting music from some young and yet seasoned creatives in New York. Adam, how are you?
I'm doing well, Louis. Good to see you.
Of course, my partner in crime, Mr. Fabian Brown, is here with us in isolation. Fabian, welcome. And finally, there you go. And finally, the lag from the mic mute thing is really interesting to navigate. And here from the West Coast, the Emperor himself, Mr. Greg Spiro, head of one of the newest imprints to be associated with Ropeadope, Tiny Records, and we just saw one of his videos. Can you, before we begin our discussion, Greg, can you just quickly tell us what we just saw with that Lido video?
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to be here, Lewis. That Lido video was Lido and Javon. They released an EP together, and I loved it so much I wanted them to come in and do reimaginations of the songs on the EP, and that was one of them. A song called Stay With Me, and we did a totally acoustic, just solo piano and voice version of it, with Javon rapping and Lido singing. The rest of the sessions that we did 6 recordings that night, so the other 5 are all full band. And we had, I believe, Chesley Allen on drums and then Solomon Dorsey on bass. And there was a trombonist too. I can't remember the trombonist's name on one of the songs. You got to have a trombonist,
100%. So the purpose of today is to kind of chat a little bit. But part of it is selfish. I wanted to see everybody. I miss y'all.
Likewise.
Yeah.
Same
And
here.
it's not just as it is with a lot of things we do here at Ropeadope. It's not a polished presentation that tells the audience what the facts are. It's more of a collaborative discussion where we're learning. We're all improvising in this world, and now it's funny that post COVID or in the midst of COVID, everyone's got to improvise a little bit. So welcome to the world of improvisation. So we're gonna talk through some of the things and some of our feelings about the music industry as it is. Hopefully, as audience members, those who are watching can understand a little bit more of what it's like to be scrambling. We were scrambling prior to COVID, and now we're seeing both some negative changes and some positive changes in this process. And sometimes the negative and the positive are the same thing. So this week, the head of Spotify, Mr. Daniel Ek, a tech billionaire, I Googled his net worth at 4.1 billion. And he is credited with creating a platform that empowers musicians. And it's right there on the Spotify website as to what this platform is, right? And it's always interesting to me because when you read on the Ropeadope website, you read some similar things, right? We talk about empowering musicians. However, there is skepticism about streaming and what that business actually is. And for a long time, he walked the line of being better than, say, the major label system, or better than maybe an iTunes or an Apple, which is a closed ecosystem, and having a more democratic thing where people can share music with each other, and there's the possibility of exposure. But fundamentally, streaming is built on a premise, in my opinion, that you can reach more people. You're renting music for a small fee, $10 a month for 30, 40, 50 million songs and 40,000 new songs every week. It's not just reasonable. If you compare that to what you pay for television content and video content, it's probably the best deal on the planet, right? The promise for independent artists was that you will have the ability to get more exposure because there's a larger audience that you're plugged into, and your streaming revenue will go up. I can say here at the label that we've seen some democratization, but I can say safely this week that it appears that the promise of this increase for streaming is not only undelivered as of yet, but it is also going to be unsustainable for musicians to create music of a certain quality. So Daniel Ek this week made a statement that, and I'm very happy that people are finally reacting to this, but my initial reaction was, first off, I can't believe you put your foot in your mouth like that. Second of all, yes, I can believe that, because clearly not only do you not care about musicians, but you really don't care about whether anybody knows that. His statement was that artists need to step it up a bit. Now I'm paraphrasing. I think specifically what he says was an artist can't release music every 3 or 4 years in this new paradigm. I took it as, I own the paradigm. These are your marching orders. So I want to start with that, and we'll throw it out. And I'd like to hear and whoever wants to volunteer to go first after that one. How do you feel about a person with so much control over the industry making a statement like that? Joe, do you want to kick that one off? I always pick on you.
Well, there's a lot there. I'll start with, you talked about caring, and one of the things that I made a joke earlier about entitlement and privilege. I think one of the um, deficits that entitlement and privilege fosters is a deficit in empathy, not in an absolute sense. Certainly, somebody, I don't know Mr. Eck, but perhaps he has empathy. I would imagine he must have some degree of empathy. But the knowledge that he should have empathy about the experience of people who populate his service, which has made him rich, I don't think he has. I don't think he knows that he should care about the people who are populating the very service that has made him beyond rich.
Mhm.
And so for me, that's relevant, not as some kind of moralistic statement, but as a music industry professor who's taught about this and been involved with digital distribution. The pricing for digital distribution of music has never been just. It was never based on justice or fairness or equitable pay to artists. It was always based on what would serve the developing business model of the people creating the business model. And so you have a very different reality. It's like, you know, when a club says I can't pay the band, but it'll be great exposure, it's the club thinking with regard to their business model, right? Any additional expense above and beyond the margins in their food and their alcohol is an additional expense, and they don't want that. You can understand that. But there's been a kind of myth about digital distribution that it was going to democratize, it was going to lead to greater revenues. In order for those things to happen, a lot of other things have to happen. The pricing and the structure of pricing in a way that represents and recognizes the value of creative work has to happen. And that's never happened. That's always been left up to the people whose interest it serves. It's been left up to them to keep those prices as low as possible. So that's one thing, is the pricing issue and the actual value. Louis, you touched on it when you said $9.99 a month is a tremendous value in terms of entertainment subscriptions. Well, yeah, and when you think about that value, it's like if you paid 4 times that, it would still be undervaluing access to all recordings ever made, essentially. So, the idea, like maybe $9.99 is a reasonable price for access to a select group of artists that you like. In other words, the pricing and the kinds of tiers and levels at which you can buy in have been set to serve Spotify and similar services. One of the reasons I think we all appreciate Bandcamp is because their pricing model is different, and the way they make content available is different, and they do have tiered kind of usage of content. So, the pricing and tiered usage idea, I think, relates to an empathic understanding of value and what it is we do. And the final thought that I have is, in 1994, I got an email from a researcher who was doing research on digitizing music, and he was talking about the way music would be distributed via the internet. This was right after the World Wide Web had just sort of gone live. Wow. And so I was really excited, and I went to my bosses then at a major label, and their response was, "This is awesome, but we need to shut it down because they're reproducing our masters, and if they're distributing them online, it's going to be a problem." Now, we're talking about, this was like 7 minutes of the Keith Jarrett Cone concert that they were able to digitize. It wasn't even the full recording. I saw it as something great in a way. I saw it as a kind of radio and a way to expose folks to music. But I thought about this idea of democratization. In the very earliest stages of the World Wide Web, for lack of a better word, there was at best a lot of blather on the internet. But at worst, and we're certainly seeing this today, a lot of really pernicious content very early on. People expressing opinions that were, hurtful, potentially dangerous, threatening. And so democratization is a wonderful thing, but it's also something that requires some real thought about moderation of content. And so this idea that you're going to produce tons of content all the time, at the very best, it's going to reduce all of us to creating musical blather, right? Just to get content out there. And at the very worst, I'm not saying it's going to create music that's dangerous, hurtful, or vile, like some of the messaging we're seeing on the internet. But at the very worst, it's going to create a kind of sea of content that is, I won't say good or bad because those are aesthetic judgments, but very difficult to wade through and assess what for the individual consumer is good or bad.
Well, that so well spoken and a lot for me to unpack, and I could easily take it to a different place, but I want to stay.
You gave
focused.
us a lot.
Yes, I'm sorry. It wasn't scripted. It's just kind of Friday morning in Philadelphia. Melody, I'd like to hear your comments.
Well, I mean, we're not going to be here long enough for me to give my full opinion about his statements, but I'll start by saying that I always appreciate it when people tell the truth about what they really think. I wasn't surprised by what he said. I was surprised that he said it. And so, you know, from an artist perspective, you know, it's clear he doesn't understand art, right? And you know, he missed the root part of artist, which was art. And that it's not a commodity, it's not a product, it's not a widget, it's not a GM assembly line. Artists are going to make music when they make music. Record labels were trying to do that long before Spotify. Control how artists make music, it won't work. That's the nature of being an artist. I think, you know, when you have the great thing about the streaming service and the exposure, and also how technology changed. What he's talking about is artists don't make enough music is ridiculous. There's more music than there's ever been because more people have the tools to make music. But there are levels and tiers to music. And I don't want to make judgment about which one is which, but some of it is good and some of it is bad. That's the whole purpose of it. That's why Stevie Wonder is Stevie Wonder and somebody else is who they are. There is a difference. And so, you know, to try to, you know, it's a fallacy to say there's not more music. We're swimming in music. And the traditional record labels did the same thing. They try to control what artists did with music and it killed them. They kill themselves with their own model. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know how Spotify, obviously it's booming and it's going great, but I think there has to be a point where even that won't be able to sustain itself, which is why, you know, while he's talking about make more music, Spotify is telling their investors, they're going to swing a certain amount of their money into podcasts. They're on to the next thing that they can exploit. So, you know, I think what I hope will happen, because I don't know that musicians were surprised by it either. We already know how they feel about us. They show us that and how they pay us. I hope that fans will get mad. I hope that fans will read that and say, so Sade is not going to be able to sustain herself, like she only makes one album every 20 years. There are artists, that can be what it's about. Right? Right? You know, the quality of the art matters. And I hope fans will get mad. And fans have shown that even during this pandemic, when their money is tight, they're going to support music. They're going to support artists. We just have to get them to go with the musicians to wherever the place is where you can sustain musicians, have great art, and give fans affordable entertainment. All of those things can be achieved, and it won't be achieved by a monopoly. It never is. That's the whole purpose of monopolies, right? To just suck up all the air and then let the chips fall where they may. But without fans paying the streaming amounts or buying the records or whatever, nothing happens. So I think the fans should join us in the outrage that we have and support the musicians that they love. And we have to just find out, you know, I'm curious to see how long it's going to take for that transition, for that bubble to burst for the Spotifys and for the Bandcamps of the world and people who are trying to do it in a more equitable way. And I know there are other people, even as we speak, who are working on those type of platforms. They're looking to compete with Spotify. They just haven't gotten there yet. So, you know, I think there's stuff bubbling on that front. just because of that disregard of an act, and X not the only one.
I want to say, in full disclosure, there's a certain risk in even having this discussion in a live way, right? So as a record label, a sizable percentage of revenue comes from Spotify, as does from Apple, as does from Bandcamp, and then from some other sources like sync licensing. I'm focusing in on Daniel Ek because he made the statement, and he's illustrating the disconnect between the tech plan, as you mentioned, and what art is, right? I have to be careful. I've often in previous years been quiet about this issue, simply because I don't want to say anything that would cause pain for any of the artists on the label. Should Spotify or Apple decide that they're not going to distribute music, that would be painful. But I want to focus in on what you said about the fans. I think we have to be vocal now to talk to individuals at this time who have come in strong on the Bandcamp platform, for several reasons. One, to support artists directly. I've had some conversations where people have asked for a product that's out of stock, and I said, well, we're going to have it back in stock on CDs, but it's going to be a little bit higher price to support the artist. And I'm literally answering the customer service emails, and people are like, 100%, absolutely. So I think you're right on it. The fans, the consumers, it would be incredibly empowering if more consumers made conscious decisions about how they're going to support art rather than just getting the subscription. And I also want to add to that high quality audio downloads on Bandcamp are the best you're going to get. You're not going to have a high quality audio collection if streaming was the only way to get music.
I think it is the case also, Lewis, that most fans are not aware that there is a difference. I mean, why would they be? Why would they know that, oh, I should buy it from this outlet because the artist gets more than, I love, they may love whatever they use, iTunes or whatever they use, and they always get their music there. They don't have, if they don't know that there's a difference, they don't know how to support.
Well, that's why we're here. 100%, speaking to people to say that Bandcamp is a premier way to support direct through artist websites is a way to support. And, if you take the time to curate your own music collection, those people that are doing that are getting much more enjoyment. And I think in this COVID era, we're seeing stats from like radio stations that public radio listenership for music has almost doubled as far as the amount of time that someone listens. So I think in a certain sense, there's this niche community, public radio, Bandcamp, direct music from artist websites where people are experiencing or engaging in music as an experience, as a thing to do. And when you do that, the quality differences become evident as opposed to putting music on while you're driving or just having it as background noise. Let me jump up to New York City. Mr. Ahuja.
Well, it's been incredible hearing what everybody's been saying so far. And there are so many places we can go with this kind of discussion. And sometimes I find myself, really trying to get some clear action points, things that can be communicated. What can people do now? What are things that can change within the system? I think some of the things that have been highlighted, such as Bandcamp, even Patreon, ways to get money directly to artists by support directly from their fans. What can they do? What can be done later? Changing the payment model from a small equalized portion per stream that actually isn't completely equal. It's the more plays you have, the more is paid to that particular person. And then don't forget that there's ownership structure of certain labels in certain streaming services which promote those artists more. So it's not exactly as democratic as it looks on the outside. So moving from that to a user-centric payment system. So if you there was a new artist that came out and you listen to that person the whole month, that percentage of what you paid for your subscription should go more or less to that artist.
Let me just jump in for a second and clarify that for people who are watching. So now Spotify takes in $1.4 billion each month, right, from their 138 million subscribers. It's an estimate, right? Then they take the number of streams that everyone from Drake down to Colonel Bruce Hampton has, right? And whoever has the most streams gets a higher percentage of the payout.
Right.
So it doesn't matter if one person plays Drake on repeat all day. And worse yet, on the flip side, if the person who is dedicated to a smaller artist is playing it consistently, part of their money is going over to the top pop artist, actually a good percentage of it. So go on. I'm sorry.
No, thank you for unpacking that a bit. And yeah, I think the point that I'm making with a couple of these comments is that there are very specific things that can be done. It is not as if this is a insurmountable, impossible area where everybody is doomed. I mean, I think another area that I would like to point out that things can be done is there's an over-reliance on capital to get your music heard to the right ears. And it doesn't necessarily have to be that, because the algorithms are designed currently in such a way that we were just describing, that maybe the best music for that person is not what's always coming to their ears in a playlist. I always point to an early starter. There was a company called ourstage.com in the earlier 2000s, and they had various genres defined in their radio system, and each artist could submit a song and it would immediately populate within that genre. And then the users had a kind of fun early version of a gaming system to listen to which song they liked better and voted one or the other. And through pairwise comparison, a different kind of algorithm, it was merit based. So whatever song people liked the most in that category went to the top of that chart. That's a much better way than feeling like you have to pay to play, which is the current paradigm. If you want to have a bunch of streams and get it across people's ears, there's a lot of people who run playlists, and then they're actually charging without Spotify knowing for you to get on these playlists. And there's a whole murky area of PR for playlists and this kind of thing, where music has been gone from being a product in terms of from a business sense to being an exposure tool to being something that you deeply have to invest in to even get someone to listen. And because of the way these algorithms are designed, like I just described, it doesn't actually have to be that way. I think that's the myth I'm trying to break right now with what I'm saying, is that you can move to a merit-based algorithm, right? You can have a user-centric payout per stream, even if you continue with streaming. And I think some of the bigger questions for me are some of the cultural issues that lead us into this kind of place, right? If you want to talk about a cultural level of art appreciation, I think we can generate relationships. We can have a certain breaking point that we're seeing in other parts of society right now. And I think we're starting to see it, hopefully, in music, where people say the value of my respect for how to support art and what that means to the artist now overrides that particular benefit I'm getting from all these free music services and free streams that were so heavily listener focused. The listener won, the platform owner won, and the artist has no sustainability in the system. So just like when someone says, well, I guess I can throw something on the ground, someone will pick it up outside. And then there's a cultural shift. There's a breaking point, and there's an avalanche. And everyone says, no, that's not good. We can't do that. I remember when I was younger and I lived in Germany, and I was, drinking a little bit, and I was younger, and I kind of broke a bottle, and some guy came next to me. He's like, "Das ist nicht cool." He told me, "That's not cool. What are you doing?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, you're right. That isn't cool." But I kind of reacted like, "Oh, what is this guy talking to me?" But it's those kind of things that we all learn and grow and realize, okay, that's not cool, right? Maybe it's very little effect on me if that bottle's over there, notwithstanding any quantum, theory. But maybe, but at the same time, now you start realizing, well, my perception of value is outside of myself, at least in this particular area, right? And the more bubbles you open to the outside of yourself, the more you start realizing that behaving like that and growing like that is good. And I think we need to be clear and build awareness with music listeners and people that there are ways to help this particular field and to be fair and ethical to musicians and artists. The second area of culture that I would just like to touch on quick is the tech dominance and the ownership of these platforms and the subscription paradigm. Because what's happening is not just in music, but in a bunch of different areas, pretty much almost every industry. What we're seeing is we're seeing companies that are becoming increasingly digital, or the centralization of the production of those digital resources and the distribution of those digital resources across industries. And what's happening is individual ownership is going down, and the companies are owning more of these digital assets, and they're loaning them out to people. So you see this we can even start imagining that we're going to see this through knowledge fields, through AI.
We're doing it right now.
Yeah, exactly. Manufacturing, when we start having more 3D printing, and that's more widely accessible across different industries. Over the next 5 to 10 to 15 to 20 years, it's going to get even more extreme. And the typical, human need to gather resources and own and control and be in power of situations. These are emotional issues. These are cultural issues that we need to address. But we're seeing this in all different paradigms. So music is not alone in this. We need to move towards more user-centric systems. And you could always design a system like that. My whole point of talking right now is that these are not the innovation that we need is already in front of us. So,
well, I might just want to comment on that real quickly. Like, so, waiting for the perfect thing to come along is also not a thing, right? So there are things being built, but I want to shout out Bandcamp. I remember when we first started, there was complaint after complaint about how the interface was not, design wise, it wasn't strong enough, and you didn't know whether it was going to survive. But here we are 12 years later, and adding to my previous comment about streaming royalties and revenue, Bandcamp represents and has surpassed the other services at this point in the last quarter as a percentage of revenue for the label. So it may not be as equitable as you're suggesting for the future, but it is one vehicle that works now.
right. I would agree.
Mr. Spiro.
Hello.
I need to get I was going to say West Coast version, but it seems like the universal or galactic opinion.
So I think he's right. I think that the streaming horse has left the gate. It no longer serves us. He's saying you can't release an album every 3 to 4 years and expect to make a living on this. Of fucking course. It's commoditized. There's no way. We will not be able to release an album every 3 to 4 years and make a living on his system, because the system does not serve us. The system serves the consumer, and that's okay. It's not okay for us. We need to find a different system. But I think that I don't think the streaming, and I thought about this very in depth, and I made business plans, I did market research, figuring out, like, does it make sense to build another music distribution service that could compete with Spotify? And I don't think it does. There's this amazing idea of like some more like collectively owned streaming system using blockchain technology, and I'm not actually set on that. Maybe that can work, but it seems like not the path of least resistance for artists actually taking back our industry. Because like Adam was saying, the industry is not in our hands anymore. It's in the hands of big tech. It's not a music industry. It's a technology industry. It's a distribution industry. The money's not going to musicians. It's going to tech. And of course it is, because it's a, so it was like 15 years ago or something. I was at some business conference, and they were talking about, it was like an entrepreneurship conference, and they talked about digitization of content. And this might have even been like 20 years ago. I was really young, and it was like that the idea is, if anything can be replicated infinitely, its value will either gradually move towards infinity, or its value will gradually move towards zero. Now, that's music, and it's gradually moving towards zero. And it is actually zero right now. If you look at the net money that's spent by artists, if you include record labels being the promoters of that art, like the Spotify is making money by taking promotional money from major labels to promote their artists and have big banners. And like, I mean, there's Spotify has killed the game, like in multiple metaphorical ways. Like they've become this Goliath that they do exactly what the world wants from a company in our capitalist system. They did it, they do it perfectly. They give the content to the consumer as cheap as possible, like you were saying, Louis, ridiculously cheap. How the hell can you get access to the entire recorded music history for $10 a month? It doesn't make any sense. But it does make sense if music is worthless. And that's what it is to them. And that's what it is actually to people as it turns into a commodity. It's the same thing with Amazon and products, right? Like products are getting cheaper and cheaper. I'm happy. I'm a consumer. I order Amazon shit every day and get it to my door. And I can take a salt bath now with Epsom salts that cost 10 times less than they would have if I had tried to buy some Epsom salts 10 years ago. It's like, but that's what music is now too. Like I couldn't have had access to all the music that I listened to, and the world couldn't have had access to this for the money that they're paying if it wasn't commoditized. So that's great for the consumer, but it really sucks for the person producing it. Like all of those independent Epsom salt creators and providers, the boutiques are out of business now because of Amazon, and all the boutique artists who are making amazing creative music expressing their hearts and souls are out of business now on the streaming services, on the streaming platforms, because it does not serve us. Music is now a commodity to them. So that's the problem, right?
Yeah.
The solution, sorry, do you have something to say?
No, go on. To see where you were.
So the solution is not in streaming, I think. I don't even think the solution is in music distribution. And I know Bandcamp is amazing, but like, what's Bandcamp's monthly revenue again? It's like what, 10 million or something like that? Or
Well, it's hard to right now. It's up closer to 20 because of recent events. We don't know where it's going to settle out. Obviously, there's a spike.
Which, how cool is that? $20 million of people going onto a thing because they want to. The only reason they're there is because they want to support artists. It's not like they're not going to be there for ease of use, and maybe for better quality, and maybe for some scarcity, like a little bit of scarcity.
I want to back up there, though. I want to ask, and you say, it's better for the consumer. That, my larger question is it better? I mean, is 40 million songs and access to all the music for $10 a month actually better? And I'm going to argue that it's not in a certain way. Look, I like to drive through as much as anybody, right? It's quite convenient to go ahead and, grab a Big Mac. Yeah, I appreciate it, right? And there was a time when McDonald's hamburgers were actually tasty. I haven't eaten there in 20 years, so because when I saw the decline in quality that's inherent in the capitalist system, I realized that the nutritional value was gone. Then the flavor started to go away. Then the service went away, and it just became a matter of convenience. And I found that for a longer term, and we get this very easily when we talk about food. I mean, everybody knows you just can't just eat junk food all the time or quick, convenient food all the time and have long-term health and value and satisfaction in your life. I think the same is true for music. I think that, you know, if there are 40 million songs, and especially if the system works the way it does, where only the latest pop paid for, you know, quick hits are going to be at the forefront. Uh, what I have to dig through in order to find the kind of music that I want to listen to becomes more and more challenging. And so what happens? I just leave it on. And then 1 year goes by, 2 years go by, 3 years go by, and I'm just listening to the flavor of whatever they're selling me consistently, and I've lost all that nutritional value.
Yeah, you're not going to find the good shit there ever.
Well, you just have to do more and more work. It's like, I don't know. It's like the flea market or yard sale. It's like there's just piles and piles of stuff thrown out, and to find anything good, you have to really dig. Whereas before, if I did actually listen to my friend, or if I went on a service like Bandcamp and saw what my friend was listening to, I took some time to invest in the process, got more value out of it.
Yeah, well, that's the world that we live in every strata of the economy right now, at least, because it's a global society and because the process has been democratized. We live in a cultural wasteland. McDonald's is like as popular as McDonald's is, obviously, and people are eating it as much as they're eating it.
And they don't make money on food.
What's that?
And they don't make money on food.
Well, yeah, and that's
in the real estate business. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, is it idealistic to say that, you know, to appeal in a niche marketing kind of sense to people at this time in history, that taking the time to curate your own record collection, whether it's digital, physical, or even paid through Patreon, or, you know, some kind of payment gateway to find good quality, isn't that better for the consumer? And
well,
can it be better? Will it be better for artists?
You're talking about consumer behavior. Is it better for that consumer if they behave in such a way that they go and research more of the content that they're consuming? And the reality is, you can also do that on Spotify. Like any, at least all the records that I've put out, and hopefully this will change. And this is what one thing artists can do to help change their paradigm for themselves, not for the big picture. The big picture is fucked, I think. But for individual artists to actually make themselves into this little micro economy, which is what we all have to do, they can not be on Spotify. We have that choice, right? Most people are not making that choice because Spotify does provide a thing that is valuable to us, which is attention. And this is where they've really got like the whole world by the balls. Is like they have the attention, they have all of these subscribers who are listening and streaming. So you put your music up there, they'll give you something, they'll give you a little bit. But that little bit, and that's what Daniel Ek was referring to, there's like, we're giving you this little bit. Don't you love this little bit that we're giving you? Like, no, it's not enough. It's not even close to enough for us to actually survive as an artistic community and to create the art, to first of all, make a living as an artist, which is a new thing in recorded history of humanity in the first place, which is amazing for the past 100 years. And since the recording, that's really the recording. Do you realize the recording is the only reason that musicians were able to really make a living on the level that we're making it now? Before that, we were mostly like wandering troubadours or like playing for a king. Even the greatest composers of history were like thrown into mass graves. But that's a completely...
It wasn't an occupation. Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't an occupation. And now it is, and we're blessed. Because we have something that is a commodity that can be scarce, which was a record, and now it's digital and it's not scarce anymore. We need to figure out the scarcity in our market. The street, what you're talking about in terms of curating your catalog as a consumer, you can do that on Spotify and you can do it on Bandcamp, which is very problematic for the artist if we're willing to participate in the streaming game. So there are two options for us. One is we can say we no longer participate in the streaming game, which is probably the smartest thing for independent artists to do, because then the only thing you'll have on the streaming game is the pure commodity music, the record label music that is made specifically for the masses, and the masses can play in that, and that's fine. But when they want something better, they'll have to go somewhere else. That's one That's one solution. If artistic, creative musicians and independent labels don't put their music on Spotify, so that's possible, right?
Well, I'd advocate that you don't have to go all the way. You know, there, and I'm actively suggesting to artists to do not put an entire album on Spotify at this point, or Apple, or any streaming service, or worldwide, global, ubiquitous distribution. 10 songs, put 8 out. Have the other 2, you know, have the full package at Bandcamp or at your own spot or at the label spot.
Yeah, that is a smart way to do it. But there is another market, and we're living in an age. This is what I've been doing all day, every day since quarantine started, and I realized that our only real, still existing revenue stream as artists, which was touring, is completely annihilated. Once I saw that, and I was like, I realized it wasn't going to be a few months. It's going to be like at least a year. And I was like, okay, I'm going to hit the ground and work on a new system. And there's a new system that I'm developing that I think if I succeed, it's going to help this in a major way to create a new market where they own their marketplace with their consumer. The artist and the consumer have an internal cycle of an economy rather than having to participate in this macro economy on a global level, which is the reason that big tech, not just Spotify, Facebook also, and YouTube also, and Apple have been able to siphon off the value from all of the art that we're creating, because when you put it through this distribution system, then the distributor has the control and they can take whatever value they want and lower the price for the consumer so they get more consumers, which is really essentially why the price is so low, because they're just trying to cater to the consumer, which is whatever any good company should do. But it really screws over the creator if you have a bunch of creators competing to produce the same commodity.
Let me take a moment and welcome Aditya Prakash to the room.
Hey, Louis. Hey, hey, Greg. Hey, everyone.
Aditya.
And I'm going to, I'll turn the microphone over to Mr. Brown to, you haven't had an opportunity to chime in. And I just need to go and check on some tech here.
Well, I'll try to keep my, I'll try to keep my comments short and brief. And first, this acknowledging all of you cats in the room. Dude, I am not the smartest guy in the room, and I'm just honored to be among individuals, creatives who, dude, you guys just get it. It's very rare. Like, listen, I know a lot of musicians and artists, right? And sometimes their head is wrapped around their music and their creation so tight that they can't have, excuse me, not that they can't, but they choose not to have these type of discussions and conversations. And I'm just fortunate to be in a room with individuals who do want to have these discussions and conversations and are articulate about it. My thought is a little bit different, and it's really just wrapped around the education of the consumer, hands down. You know, having a big family, having kids, you know, having my career early on, my first career being in music education, teaching a business class at University of the Arts. I've always had the opportunity to be influential in molding individuals in their minds and the way they think and the way they listen and and how they act when it comes to music, right? So I always felt that was important for me, a big responsibility for me that's sacred, right? Because I literally have the keys to someone's mind and molding the way they think about music for years to come. So I always took that extremely, extremely seriously. And then moving away from that, you know, and listening to this conversation, I really just think we need to get back to the basics and really need to have more intelligent conversations, not just with artists and musicians and, you know, our age consumers, but the younger generation too, and really help them understand the discovery piece and how to discover music, and, you know, not get tricked and trapped into this monopoly of, you know, the big business of music or the big business of tech. Because it's like Adam said, like Greg said, it's not really even the music industry anymore. It's pretty much just the tech industry. So my plea is for the consumers, for the music fans, you know, to really take a look at how they are supporting this precious thing called the music industry, because it is very, very precious. And if we continue down this road that we're on, commoditizing, music, there's not going to be a sustainable way for musicians to continue to create that. It's just that's what I see. I just see that it's going to be a decline in quality of music, and the drive for musicians and artists to want to create, because they're very passionate about what they do, but at the same time, if they're not respected the way they should be respected and treated, then it's going to be a very, very slippery slope. But I am hopeful. I am optimistic. These types of conversations, and some companies that are out there like Bandcamp, that care about the growth and the this way the future of music is. It's refreshing, right? But I think these conversations have to be happening more. I think we have to really look at our younger people and really give them the tools and the information that they need to make better decisions, to make better choices on how they're going to support music and how they're going to consume and listen to music. So that's really, I wanted to keep my comments real brief, and my call out is to all the consumers, all the super fans out there. You guys know who you are. All the fans know who they are. Just make the best choices to continue to support those artists and musicians, and then tell your friends, because I really just think it's a gap in education. I just think people just don't know. They don't know what they don't know.
I agree, and I want to point out to people in that process, it's not just super fans. So, or if you are what we would term a super fan, being a person that purchases regularly from artists, on top of or outside of their digital subscription to a major streaming service. You're that guy who walked by Adam and said, "That's not cool," right? You're the person that understands more than the other individuals, especially for young people. And it is important to speak up. And the simple way to speak up is to share the information. We have the internet. You can share music, and be a tastemaker and guide your friends, excuse me, to to Bandcamp, to each artist's individual website, and support as best you can. This is an incredible. This is a small sample today of the incredible group of musicians that I and Fabian have had the absolute pleasure of meeting and communicating with, and there are hundreds and hundreds of people who we're already struggling to meet their true nature, and that is to create beauty in the form of music for the rest of the world to hear. They need the fans as much as you need them, and I want to just go around the room and say thank you to each, and tell people where to go to follow up on this. So Greg Spiro, thank you very much. Always appreciate you. Tiny Records is tiny-records.bandcamp.com, I believe. Fabian,
Probably.
we're going to get those in there, but you can go to ropeadope.bandcamp.com, and at the top of the page there are labels listed, and some of those folks are here in the room, so you'll find Tiny Records there, or look at the Ropeadope website and direct that way. Melody Forrester from Artist First Records in Philadelphia, thank you so much for taking time to share with us, and people can go to your site same way, Artist First. Check out so many great musicians. Joe Pinato, thank you, sir. brightdogred.bandcamp.com, and prepare yourself. You're going to go on a journey when you hit that. There's a new record coming out in a couple of months, I believe. Double LP, yeah, double CD. Thank you, Joe. Adam Ahuja, Infinity Gritty is the label. What's so amazing here is that all the quality is there, and yet you're gonna find different treasures in each of these places, folks. Infinitygritty.bandcamp.com. And then I welcomed Aditya Prakash, and this is a great example of a person who spends his life committed to music, who digs deep into not only his own cultural heritage and the form of music that is in his tradition, going back and communicating, working with the great Ravi Shankar, but also in reconciling it with the culture that he is living in the United States, and bringing us something that not only uh, helps us understand that tradition, it takes us outside of our usual experience, but also presents it in such a way that we can understand it from our vantage point. Aditya, first off, how are you? Are you safe and well?
Hey, thanks for that introduction, Lewis. Yeah, I am. I'm at home in LA. It's been a long time since I've been in one place, and I've been going kind of crazy because my life has always been on the road, touring, performing, and but I'm just happy to have my family and a place to live and a place to practice. You see the tamburas behind me.
I was going to ask what the correct instrument name was.
Yeah, people confuse this for a sitar a lot, which is it's far from that, but it's the traditional instrument that it sounds. I'll play it for you if you want.
Please.
It's just like a drone that the Indian classical musical style. It kind of revolves around this sound, and then everything you sing. The music doesn't start until this instrument makes its presence felt, and so that's a bit about the tambura. But yeah, I've just been just getting into more practice and yeah, I guess the topic today kind of hits home because I've been in denial kind of because I guess the way I've made a living is through touring, performing, and I've always thought of streaming as just like I've not had any hope in that because I've never really made a living off of that, and now it's a time where I just have to you have to realize that touring is the future of touring and performing is not something viable right now, and I don't even know when it will become viable again. And just I'm learning a lot from these conversations, and I just want to say that what Fabian said really like hit home to me. I didn't realize that, but yeah, I think education is so important, and it kind of brought a parallel to the idea of plastic. How when it first came out, it was the greatest thing. Like everyone, it was the easiest thing, easiest way to like access things, to package things, and to get more goods. And I think that's what's and now it's become a huge problem. And only with the education, the documentaries on the harm of plastic, are people like me like getting to change, switching to not using plastic, trying to avoid it. And I think something similar is happening with technology and music. It's technology is like that plastic that is it's so easy to get access to everything, but it's harming the ecosystem of the arts. And the only way is if people know the harm of it. And I think that's something that I didn't realize till you just said it, Fabian. And I think that's super important, the education for the consumer.
I don't think there's a better analogy. Tell us, we're gonna go out with a video from you. If you could just preface what people are about to watch, and then we're gonna, I'm gonna say one more time, thank you to everyone, and I want to say one more time to the audience, please go to Bandcamp. It's Bandcamp Day. They're waiving their fees. Support artists. You can pay more if you like. It is obviously extremely important that revenue comes in on this side of the music business because touring is gone, and we all know you didn't pay $100 for that concert ticket, so there's probably maybe a little bit of budget right there. I know everybody's hurting, but if you've got it, support, and if you don't, sharing is the next best thing. And I want to mention also that we're going to be back at 4 o'clock this afternoon with more unreleased video and some conversation. And then at 6 o'clock tonight, Christian Scott Atunde Ajua will be interviewing Alexander Flood from Australia, 14 hours in the future. and that should be very interesting. I see that Joe Pinato has some final comments before we move on to Aditya's video.
Oh, I was just going to type them for this group, but I don't mind saying them publicly.
Oh,
I'm very
sorry.
pleased to live in a world where we have a Fabian Brown and a Lewis Marks to partner with, and colleagues like those of you on this call, all of you
Amen.
doing amazing things. And just in terms of music and value, remember Spotify made nearly $7 billion last year, and the vast majority of that is from consumers subscribing to music. So consumers are willing to cough up some money, and they're coughing up very little money, but let's keep in mind that they do want to show us support. And you know, today we're championing Bandcamp, and I think that's great. And let's just remember that they are out there and they want to support us.
There we go. So we will have a chance to continue the chat as we move into this video. Aditya, if you could just pre-pave for people, what are we looking at?
Yeah, so this is from a performance in Guadalajara for the book festival, which is one of the biggest festivals in the world. And it was the first time I performed in Mexico with my band, and there wasn't one single Indian person in the audience. And it was just a beautiful experience being able to connect with an audience that I normally wouldn't perform with, but they got it. Like, they were right there with me. And it was like one of those moments where the cliche moments of universal music, but it exists, man. And that connection with the audience and my band and we're blown away by the response. And what you're going to hear is, it starts off with me improvising, in a more traditional way. And then, I've taken like an existing, composition that was actually used in a Bollywood movie, but I've kind of like stripped down the whole Bollywood down to it. And yeah, it's just a mix of jazz, Indian classical, hip hop. But I mean, it's not those two. It's inspired from those sounds, those cultures of music, and it's something else. And yeah, I hope you guys.
All right, let's cue it up.
Na
सपने दीजे हरियाली दिखलावे नैनो की जुबानों पे भरोसा नहीं आता एक तू पर तू न रसीद गाता सारी बात हवाई रे सारी बात हवाई बिन बादल बरसाई सावन सावन बिन बरसाता बिन बादल बरसाई सावन सावन बिन बरसाता बिन बादल बरसाई